Now we already know that North Korea has been sending shells and troops to Russia to help Putin in his war against Ukraine. But another important part that people are often overlooking is the fact that North Korea has sent thousands of nuclear-capable ballistic missiles to Russia. And on top of that, they have sent military specialists to help service the launchers and participate in firing these missiles against Ukraine, often targeting civilian infrastructures. So, it's not just that North Korea is helping Russia in this war, it's North Korea is helping Russia commit war crimes in this war. On top of all this, recently we got news that North Korea is looking to expand plants making missiles that Russia has been using in Ukraine. That means North Korea wants to up the support it's providing Russia, while all the Western countries, more specifically the US, is slowing down their support for Ukraine. But anyways, Ukrainian forces were able to get their hands on these missiles that North Korea is producing and firing. So let's break down this footage with former Navy SEAL Chuck Farr. But like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously in the algorithm when covering these war-related topics. Let's start.
Yet this series of homes in Kiev turned to rubble by something other. Not Russian, but a North Korean supplied ballistic missile. And made able to fly here to cause this barbarism, killing a man and his 4-year-old son by circuitry from the United States.
Yeah,
From the United.
it's terrible to watch that. And giving the statistics, 95% of Russia's precision strike munitions target houses just like that little boy was in. They prioritize civilian targets. And what we're looking at right now is a United States manufactured circuit board that is part of the KN-23 short-range ballistic missile. There are dozens and dozens of Western components that are key to Russian weapons, including the Iskander. I would say you can probably be sure that the Oreshnik intermediate range ballistic missile probably has these same circuit boards in it. You know, it's a very inconvenient fact that the night vision, thermal, and targeting optics in the Russian T-90 tank, they were all manufactured in France. So these components, these Western components, sanctions do bite, but obviously they're a bit permeable. But Russia, China, and North Korea, they absolutely depend on smuggling in these circuit boards because they cannot manufacture them themselves. So it's really hard to watch a piece of film like that. And I'm happy to remind our listeners that happens virtually every day in Ukraine. And it is not collateral damage. These are not accidents. These are the aimed targets, right? You live in an apartment block in Kyiv, you're a target. You've got a housing block where that little boy was living, you're a target. And this is what they intend to do, is sow terror.
And is there any advantage that Russians think they get that putting their resources targeting civilian infrastructure instead of targeting military infrastructure? Like, do they believe they have some kind of advantage? Like, it can help them win the war quicker by doing so? Like, why are they doing that?
You know, it's simple brutality. History has shown us that it doesn't work. The British were not bombed into submission in the Blitz, right? America did not bomb Hanoi into submission. No nation has ever been bombed into submission. And in fact, the Allies did not bomb Nazi Germany into submission. In 1945, the Germans made more airplanes than they had made in the previous entire length of the war. So this is just this Russian brutality. History shows us that instead of terrifying the people, it galvanizes them, it pulls them together, which is a basic psychological phenomena. If you stress a group of people, inevitably they pull together. But this is Russia partly out of frustration, and frankly, they can't find Ukrainian military targets. This war has shown us that in terms of signals intelligence, tactical intelligence, and even overhead imagery, Ukraine is light years ahead of Russia, because in addition to their own organic capabilities, they get first-class NATO orbital imagery every single day.
Ukrainian officials told CNN ballistic missile attacks by Russia were rising fast, 194 so far this year, and about a third of them, at least 60, were using North Korean KN-23s. But these crude missiles, part of growing aid as North Korean troops also come to Russia, rely on a sophistication smuggled into the Hermit Kingdom. One on display by Ukrainian investigators at this Kiev warehouse of missile fragments. It is a house of horrors, drones that haunt the night skies, rockets that tear down lives. They pick through the dust to learn how the killing machines work, here rebuilding a Shahed Iranian drone's circuits.
Parts from a Kinjal missile, a Shahed Iranian drone and a Russian all-land reconnaissance drone, all things Ukraine has been subjected to for many months, but key, these North Korean KN-23 missiles rely, they say, on components from the United States and the Netherlands.
So when they break apart something like this, is the main goal just to figuring out what's getting through the sanction, or are they learning something militarily that can give them an advantage too?
Yeah, we saw there that they had completely reconstructed the navigation and flight systems of Shahed drone. You do that so you can find vulnerabilities in the system. For example, putting that together, making it functional, you can find electronic warfare exploits for countermeasures to mess up its navigation, to mess up its flight controls, and a growing percentage of downed Shaheeds. And basically, 70% of Shaheeds get downed in every attack. Sometimes it's 100%. But a growing number of those kills are electronic warfare kills as well. But you always want to, it'll happen every time there is a precision weapon strike. They'll go through every little piece they can with the goal of completely assembling the flight control systems. So again, you can see how it works and how to break it.
This box, containing dozens of small bits of circuitry made by household names in the USA or Europe, subject to sanctions globally, but smuggled, often via China, to North Korea.
When you open all this up and find American components, how do you feel?
Чувствується, що якось не дуже санкції працюють, то що.
От залишки корпусу ракети, вся електронна начинка, вся іноземна. Корейського там нічого немає. Корейський тільки метал, який швидко ржавіє.
The journey the chips and circuits take to Russia may lead through North Korea, even China as a middleman, though ultimately they are US design and make.
Чіпи ми розуміємо, що в основному це є Сполучених Штатів, але країна-виробник може бути і Китай, і може бути Малайзія, тобто і Тайвань, самі. Але це є штаб-квартири, знаходяться, ми маємо на увазі Сполучених Штатів.
As the toll from these missiles deepens, Ukrainian officials say the Western firms need to be held accountable. From Thursday's Russian launch of a new weapon to their growing use of purloined North Korean missiles, the global reach of this war grows.
Yeah, there is another thing that is an outfall of this. If you identify a company whose parts are showing up in North Korea, there should be some scrutiny to that company. To whom did they sell? And, the Iranians are expert at setting up shell companies, et cetera, et cetera. And frankly, though, it's hard to stamp out greed, right? People make these things, they want to sell these things, and perhaps they're not as careful as they should be about who gets them. And some of these circuits may appear completely innocuous. Some of them, frankly, no one has any idea that they had a utility in a precision weapons, especially in an intercontinental ballistic missile. But again, the sanctions are porous, and we're still not doing everything we can.
Yeah, and it's not even the company's fault, right? Like I read some report from Financial Times where the calculators that are shipping to, let's say, Kazakhstan or countries around Russia, they are shipping them back to Russia, and then they're taking apart the chips. For initial company, that'd be very hard to stop.
Yeah, exactly. And Kazakhstan is a major vector for everything from automobiles to thermal cameras to you name it. All these things that have utility on the battlefield. So again, if you're selling stuff to Kazakhstan, I think you ought to know where it's going to wind up.
Yeah, that's true. But it's also like, that's where it's tough. Like, I don't know how government officials do it, because like you can't really stop calculators going to Kazakhstan, can you? Like, that would be excessive.
Exactly. But it also shows the hunger, the technological hunger that Russia has. If you're willing to, get your hands on a scientific calculator to take it down so you get 2 or 3 transistors out of it, I mean, it shows how improvised these are, it's kind of ad hoc this technology is. And again, when Putin gets up there and bangs his chest and says, "I have a super weapon," let's remember that some of it is, they're calculator parts in some of it. So, does the Oshrenik impress me? No, it doesn't. Does the recklessness of the Russian government and dropping, MIRVs onto a city? Yeah, I have taken note of that.
Did you see the TV statement that he gave where his hands weren't moving at all?
Yeah, it's, governments like Putin's and dictatorships, they seem unshakable until they fly apart, right? Nicolae Ceausescu got up on a balcony to give a speech. 12 hours later, he was up against the wall and shot. Muammar Gaddafi went out to wave at people from his limo. 2 hours later, he's being pulled out of a culvert and torn to death by a mob. There was an interesting bit of film I saw, and it was Putin giving a speech, and his minions were sitting around, but it was fascinating. The faces in that room, they were almost embarrassed. They were looking down. No one was smiling, and I thought, man, maybe this is the first whiff of trouble, because nobody seemed to be buying whatever he was saying. And we'll see. No dictatorship lasts forever. Caligula didn't last forever. Nero didn't last forever. We'll see.
YouTube is still not a fan of a lot of topics we cover, and that means the videos get restricted and demonetized. That's why we recently launched memberships and Patreons. This way you guys can support the content we make directly if you're able to. Because we want to continue covering this type of topics even if advertisers don't like it. We like doing it, and hopefully you guys like watching it. That's why Patreon and memberships give us a way to continue doing that without worrying about YouTube demonetizing our videos. So if you're interested and you're able to support us, you can do so by joining our Patreon or becoming a member on YouTube. The QR codes will be on the screen and the links in the description. Your support is greatly appreciated.